Hello and welcome to the AP Podcast. I'm your host, Archer Heron, and this is episode 15, and we just wrapped up week 12 of the NFL season. It is going by a little too fast for my liking, but that's okay. Enjoy it while you have it, guys. Enjoy it while you have it, because once football goes away, I miss it dearly. Hopefully, once NBA playoffs come around, we can start posting a lot of stuff about them, but football's really my main focus, so let's go ahead and get into it. All right. This last week, one of the most enjoyable weeks of football I think I've had this year. I mean, I really loved watching the games this week. They were very entertaining, and some of the storylines in the NFL so far have been pretty exciting. I want to start off with the NFC and the 1 seed. Because a 1 seed determines playoff bye and home field advantage. And I wanted to talk about who I think is going to have the 1 seed. And I think between the Saints and Niners, it's all going to come down to this next week. It's going to be one of the best games of the year, I think. I am a Saints fan, so I'll be a little bit more invested than most. But I think this next week is really going to be a game to watch. I'm very happy and excited to watch that. So, the Saints and Niners play next week. The Saints, I believe, are struggling with big plays, and I think the Niners are struggling with a little bit of consistency on offense. Beginning of the year, their running and their rushing attack was incredible. Under Kyle Shanahan, he was getting 3 to 4 running backs involved a game that were having productive numbers and were helping the team carry on these drives. That they've had these lengthy drives. Especially, I like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's a good player, but he's not the greatest player, obviously. And sometimes he makes mistakes. He gets a little frightened, a little shook up, kind of a little scared. We saw that when he played the Seahawks, kind of a little flustered, but that comes with somebody who's still getting used to a starting role on a team. Especially for someone like him who sat behind Tom Brady for years and years, and now his moment's here and he has to capitalize. But besides that, Tevin Coleman couldn't get anything out of him this last week, and I think he's their most talented back. I think he has a lot of talent and success in his future, but he couldn't get anything done. Raheem Mostert, pretty good. He played pretty well, but Shanahan couldn't find out how to get Jeff Wilson or Tevin Coleman involved, really, from what I saw in the game. Saints, however, their running game has been weird. We haven't really used Alvin Kamara to his full potential, I don't think. The Saints they're in a weird spot with Kamara because that 5-game stretch with Teddy Bridgewater, they tried to get Teddy and his receivers and Jared Cook, and Kamara was out for a couple of those games, but it's just been a while since we've seen like an Alvin Kamara game where he's really showcased his talent and what he can do to help his team win in a couple of weeks. I haven't seen it in a couple of weeks. I'd love to see it coming up next to the Niners. It's a big game for him. If he can really showcase his talents, I think he can really put himself in the conversation for top 3, top 2 back in the NFL. But the Saints are struggling with big plays, in my opinion. They've got Michael Thomas, who's obviously an incredible wide receiver, has a historic pace. I've talked about him in the MVP race, which sounds crazy, but I don't know. If he can really show off these next couple of weeks, break the receptions record, I know I know for a fact he's not going to get selected for MVP, but he might get a couple votes thrown his way from a couple of those analysts over there. But besides that, they have Jared Cook, and that's it. Ted Ginn has been meh this season. Traquan Smith has been not very involved, and they don't have Cameron Meredith, who they got rid of. They just don't have any reliable receiving options except for Mike. And Jared Cook's been kind of a letdown. I mean, he just hasn't been getting the big numbers, and he doesn't have as many receiving yards and touchdowns as he did in Oakland. I think he's still a vital part to the offense in that Sean Payton knows what he's doing, but Doesn't seem like Drew has any interest in throwing to him. We haven't really seen a good tight end come out of New Orleans since Jimmy Graham. It has been a long time, but Jimmy Graham was dominant in his run with New Orleans. So if they can get Jared Cook with that level of production, I think that will be incredible to watch. Little lip smack. Sorry about that. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. They're not going 0-16, guys. They made it. They broke it. They didn't lose every game of the season. They actually played pretty well from what I saw against the Jets. It wasn't like one of those games where, the bad team, they were behind the whole game, but they barely hung on because the team they were playing was awful. Like, it wasn't one of those games. I thought the Bengals, if you looked at that game and you saw the Bengals playing the Jets, you would not think the Bengals were as bad as they really have been this season. I think that what a lot of people expected from the Bengals at the beginning of the season showed in this last game against the Jets. Andy Dalton, I mean, it's kind of weird. He gets benched for what's his name? Riley Finch, I think is his name. Ryan Finley. I'm stupid. Ryan Finley. He gets benched for Ryan Finley, the rookie. Finley can't produce. They get Andy Dalton back, and he produces. He shows up when it mattered most, and he got him a dub. Joe Mixon played great. Joe Mixon is one of the most underutilized backs in the league. He's an incredible talent on a bad team, and they used him, and it worked out. They got the dub 22-6. That was an entertaining game, and the Bengals' defense was pretty good. Geno Atkins had a couple good plays. They played well, and this Jets squad, they're not good by any means, in my opinion, but they're not horrible. They're in the bottom tier of the league. I'll say that. They have a lot of talent, but I think their coach, Adam Gase, is one of the worst in the NFL. Bad coach, decent talent. Bengals got the win. That was cool to watch. It's always cool to see a fan base celebrate like the Bengals did over one win. I mean, I've never really been in that sort of position in either of my fandoms, Saints or Titans. Although Titans did go 3-13 and got the number 2 pick, but Titans have always kind of been a below average team. But hey, they're picking it up this year. That's actually a really good segue into what I wanted to talk about next. The Tennessee Titans, oh my goodness, they're a threat in the AFC, in my eyes. Ryan Tannehill playing better than he has ever played in his NFL career. That's incredible. He's doing what he has to do to win, and that's what I love to see out of him, is he's not scared to run at a 250-pound linebacker that's 3.5 inches taller than him. He's not scared to take the hit and go for the touchdown. When they had Marcus in, Marcus was sliding on those, and on that one, I'm sure you guys have seen it. It was against the Jaguars. First drive actually. Ryan Tannehill runs in from 20 yards for the touchdown, takes a nasty hit, gets thrown in the air into the end zone for the touchdown. He's a big boy. He's got some athletic ability, I will say, and he prevailed and got the touchdown. I think if Marcus had been in that situation and he had run and he had the capability to run, I think Marcus would have slid with his injury past and the fact that he's kind of been a little timid in his football career. I mean, I feel like we never really saw all of Marcus Mariota's potential that he had in the running game and the mobility that he kind of had coming out of Oregon. Never really saw that transferred to the NFL, and I think that has a lot to do with the organization he went to, the Titans, who didn't really know what to do with him, so they kind of just turned him into a pocket passer and not really good. And then his injuries, and then he slowly deteriorated and became scared of running. And Ryan Tannehill, even with his injury past, really showed out. He's been balling out with the Titans. He's 5-1 in his last 6 starts. He's second in the league in completion percentage, and he looks incredible. And Derrick Henry, another level of running back. if you look at Derrick Henry's stats, not just his play, his stats, he is dominating in the past 16 games running into last season. The man's has 319 carries for 1,817 yards and 18 touchdowns in the last 16 games. Comparing that to Ezekiel Elliott, who had 315 rushes for 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns, is saying something. Derrick Henry is a top 10 back in this league and has more time to show his real talent. And he could be a top 5 back. I mean, if you've watched these games, he's fearless. He plays well. He finds the hole. I do think he needs to really focus on... He is insanely good when he can get to the outside. If he can get to the outside and cut, and he has some blockers, and he can pick up some speed, because takes him a second to get going. But once he gets going, nobody's catching him. I think he could be a top 5 back. Okay, maybe not top. That's a big statement. But Derrick Henry's incredible. Been playing out of his mind, and the Titans are succeeding from it. Their defense has been incredible. Really, the only thing I have to say about the Titans is their offense was kind of lacking against the Colts. They got a couple lucky breaks. Got bailed out by their defense a couple times. Ryan Tannehill said it himself. They need to be more consistent on offense and have a better drives, more consistent, longer drives, instead of just being bailed out by defense. But hey, it's working. Cool to watch, and they're a real threat in the AFC. Another threat in the AFC is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wow. I mean, if you had told... I don't know what to say. 2 years ago... 3 years ago, sorry. 3 years ago. 2.5, 3 years ago. They had Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, both top 5 in the league at the time. And Ben Roethlisberger, a Hall of Fame quarterback. And if you told me that they lost all 3 of them in a season, and then somehow still stayed above 500, even above 500, I would be impressed. I think it has a lot to do with Mike Tomlin, a really, really talented coach. And it also has a lot to do with their defensive unit. The rookie Devin Bush has kind of stepped up as a leader on his team, I think. And that trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick has paid off. I think he leads the league in interceptions since he got traded to Pittsburgh. I believe that's a correct stat. But wow. The Steelers are really another big threat in the AFC. I would have to say, if the Titans can't make the wild card, it's going to be the Steelers. They're really good. And with Devlin Hodges at quarterback, who, by the way, actually played pretty well his past 2 starts, better than Mason Rudolph, I'll tell you that. That's incredible. That's it. There, if you're a Steelers fan, you've got to be one of the luckiest fan bases in the NFL, because I'm telling you, 31 other teams wouldn't have been able to do what the Steelers did in the situation they did if they lost all 3 of their best players. All 3 of their best players. And still somehow stayed in the playoff picture. I would be extremely impressed. Especially with a unit like Pittsburgh, where they have talent, but when you lose the top 3, you go to a bottom tier. James Conner's been banged up. Juju hasn't been really targeted by these quarterbacks. And they're just finding a way to win, and that's all that matters. And that's awesome. I'm happy for the Steelers fans, because they had a lot of this past couple of years have been kind of rough. Missed the playoffs last year in a horrible way. Sheldon Rankins ripped the ball out of Juju's hands, destroyed their playoff hopes and dreams. AB left them. Lev Bell held out. Ben Roethlisberger injured, and they're still in the playoff picture. Moving on. What's going on with the Eagles? I feel like I talk about this every week, but they lost to the Miami Dolphins 37-31. Poor performance by Carson Wentz. They had a hard time finding a running game. Their pass defense is awful. Another level of bad. They are horrible. Devontae Parker, I think he had 5 receptions for around 170 yards and a touchdown. I don't know what to say about the Eagles. I feel like if you're an Eagles an Eagles fan, this is one of the last straws. You might have to just quit watching football at this point. I feel bad. Feel bad for you, EDP. Shout out to EDP445. Big Eagles fan, but he's in a rough situation right now. All right. That's a quick talk about Eagles. What's weird about that is Carson Wentz. I really think he's a good quarterback. I think he got his receivers. He got Alshon and Aguilar back this week and barely did anything, really. I mean, 31-37 high scoring, but like against the Dolphins, they just lost their best safety a couple weeks ago. Couldn't overthrowing passes, not making great decisions. Just overall, that's if you could see my face right now, that's the kind of state the Eagles are in. Just one of those big. That's rough. All right, moving on to the Cardinals. Again, last week I talked about, or 2 weeks ago, I talked about Kyler Murray and the success the Cardinals have found in him. A blowout by the Rams, who haven't even looked that great this season. I didn't get to watch the game really that much because I was watching Red Zone, and because it was a blowout, they weren't showing much of it. And I don't know what to say. I like the Cardinals. I really do. I think Kyler Murray has been giving an Offensive Rookie of the Year bid this year, playing really well, and the defense is not doing him any favors, I'll tell you that. David Johnson isn't doing him any favors. The receiving core isn't doing him any favors, so we'll have to see. It's a rebuild, I have to say. They're in a rebuild, and they might need to tank and get a good pick because they need it. Moving on to the Chiefs. They beat the Raiders, that's good. They beat the Raiders. Raiders are a good team, and the Chiefs blew them out, too. It wasn't just a win. Patrick Mahomes looks back in his Patrick Mahomes-like state. Looks good, especially after that knee injury, which I'm actually very surprised he's recovered as fast as he had. I did not expect him to play against Tennessee after literally watching his knee get popped back into place on the field. And he played 2 weeks later. Incredible. That just shows the will of the human mind and the human body. But the Chiefs beat the Raiders. Good game for the Chiefs. They're back on track in the AFC playoff picture, fighting for a spot in their division. It'll be a fun one to watch. That division, I think, might come down to the wire. But that is awesome. Last topic I wanted to talk about, Tom Brady. Is he washed? Is he old and slow and just not a great quarterback anymore? I think that he is old and slow, but he's smart and he knows what to do in these situations. He has not played well. His accuracy has been horrible. And all the Patriots fans all complain about he has no receivers. He has nobody to throw to. BS. Mohamed Sanu is a good he's above average on the wide receiver position. All the Patriots fans talking about how Julian Edelman is a Hall of Famer. He's on your team if you really do believe he's a Hall of Famer, which I don't. And James White, basically a receiver. Come on. Get it together, Tom. You have the second lowest completion percentage in the league. Sorry, that is an incorrect stat. You have a worse completion percentage than Mitchell Trubisky. That's worse. It's like you're barely even playing football. And one thing I think that the Patriots need to, Bill Belichick in particular, he likes to really weirdly give the ball to his running backs. 1 week it's Rex Burkhead. The next week it's James White. The next week it's Sony Michel. Sony Michel is a far better runner than both Rex Burkhead, James White, or Brandon Bolden. He's better than all of them. Like, again, in their loss against the in their loss against the Texans. That's who they lost to. Sorry, I couldn't remember that. They gave the ball to Sony Michel 10 times. He had 45 yards. 4.5 yards per carry is good. Bill Belichick is not giving it to Sony Michel. It's weird. I mean, James White had a good game on the stat sheet, but if you watch the game, I don't think he ran it very well at all. I think he's an insanely good receiving back. I don't think he's an extremely good running back. But that's besides the point. I think Tom Brady has to play better for this team to win. He has the mindset. He has the will to do it. He just needs the talent back. His old age is finally catching up to Touchdown Tom. And that is no fun. Also, this top elite defense, which it is a top elite defense, is not the best in the league. It's showing some weakness. They got tired. The Texans had the ball a lot of that game, and they got tired easily and quickly. And then the Texans picked them apart. They blasted them in the second quarter, and then the Patriots kind of came on a run, but couldn't capitalize on their couple of scores at the end of the game. But it is what it is. I'm gonna wrap the podcast up there. Thank you so much for listening. If you got this far, go ahead and leave a like. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next week. Goodbye. See you later.